Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth.
On Now You Know. We're brought to you by abetterrouteplanner.com. Use their link in the show notes below to get a 30-day free trial to the premium version of the app.
And we want to thank Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. What's the matter?
I can't find a show that I want to watch on Netflix.
You do know that we're recording an important show right now.
It was here, and now it isn't.
All right, well, have you tried British or Canadian Netflix?
How am I supposed to do that? Buy a British laptop?
No, we've talked about this before with Surfshark.
How?
Okay, so Surfshark is an app for your browser that lets you choose what country you want to browse from.
So I can just be in Canada?
Yeah, it's that easy. Just a little pull-down menu and boom, you're now in Canada.
Bump?
What's wrong with bump?
I mean, bump is for something little. This is huge. This is a ta-da!
Okay, ta-da! Now you're in Canada. Because did you know that at any given time, there are hundreds of movies, hundreds of shows that are only offered in a particular country on streaming services like Netflix and Prime. And if you're not there, you can't watch them.
Ta-da! Until now. And Surfshark is the only VPN to offer one account to use on an unlimited number of devices.
Use our code to get 83% off and get 3 extra months for free.
Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee so you can try it out for yourself, risk-free.
Go check it out. Link is in the description below. And we're sponsored by BigBattery.com with the best battery prices in the USA, guaranteed. If you've got something you need to power, from homes to cars, RVs to boats, and much more, BigBattery.com has you covered, offering the newest battery tech. Use the code NOWYOUKNOW to save 5% off your purchase today at BigBattery.com.
And we're brought to you by EcoWare.us.
Help support our channel by heading over there. You'll find new designs every week. And this week only, we're having 15% off all summertime items like swimwear, towels, tank tops, all 15% off this week. And we carbon offset the production, shipping, and life cycle of every product. And we plant a tree for every order.
And we help cap a well for every order. So what we're about to show you, you probably have never seen before.
And that's what I love about our job. I feel like we have our finger on the pulse of this electrification movement. And because of you, our amazing community, we get to hear about many things first, and we get to share them with you.
From the first second I saw the Lighthorse, I was hooked.
And the one thing I want to stress is that what you're about to see isn't vaporware. It's not just a CGI rendering. There are actual prototypes and there are actual factories prepping as we speak to make it.
Here's our interview with the co-founder and CEO of LyteHorse, Allen Bonk.
Well, Allen, thanks so much for being with us today here on Disruptive Investing. I guess the first question that just came at me because I was looking at your website a few minutes ago is you say that if Mad Max and Tesla had a baby, you would have the LyteHorse. And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, that's kind of true. That's a really good pitch for what it is. Can you tell us like where you came up with this idea for the LyteHorse to begin with?
Yeah, the little moniker or phrase really does fit with LyteHorse. And how we came up with it was about 2.5 years ago. My brother surprised me by sending me a text with this picture of a little yellow, call it a scooter, if you will, that he had gotten the idea from the golf board, which is a product that's out there and it's used exclusively on golf courses. It's built on a skateboard chassis. It's electric and it has 4 wheels, but the challenge with it is you have to weight shift to steer it. And so Brad was looking at that and going, well, that's not something I want to do when I'm 55 years old. That's okay for the 20 somethings, but not for me. So what could I build that would be, maybe easier to manage and maneuver than that? So anyway, he didn't tell me, as he often doesn't. He just keeps these things to himself, and then he likes to shock me. So he did. He said, I go, what the heck is that? Like, what on earth have you done here? And so this little yellow machine with a washing machine electric motor on it and a battery and a little controller. And you stood on it and you could steer it with the handlebar, but it was a vertical riding machine that you stood on. And so I go, that's curious. Well, why don't you send it out? I'm an avid golfer, and I thought, let's test it out on the golf course. I was living on Vancouver Island at the time, and so he crated it up, shipped it out, jumped on a plane, followed it, and we went out and took it out on the golf course close to home, and gosh, it was like really cool. But I started thinking, the golf niche, although cool and something I'm very fond of, is a difficult market because the golf industry typically stays flat. You have as much attrition with people leaving as you do people starting the game every year. And so it never really grows. And the idea of being able to do more with this machine started to kind of take over my brain. So I said to him as we were out on the golf course, I said, you know what, let's go out to the parking lot. I have my SUV out there, and it was 5,000 pounds. And I said, let's just hook it up to the SUV and see if it can maybe pull it. So sure enough, the silly thing pulled my SUV around this parking lot. And I'm like, okay, now we have something with more utility and more applications than just golf. So maybe we can turn this into a business. And so the next iteration was something completely different than the first one. And it was, in my view, transformative, because as I started to research the space, the EV space out there, there was really nothing in the world that was utilitarian that you could stand on and electric, right? So the prerequisites, it's got to be electric, obviously, no emissions, no noise. And what could it be used for? So as the next iteration of design evolved, the apparent uses just kind of jumped out at me. So I'm looking at now law enforcement and warehouse use for moving people around in an Amazon fulfillment center. Instead of them riding a bike around to go pick stock, just jump on the LyteHorse. And it's so easy because all you have to do is step on and step off. There's no climbing, there's no straddling, there's none of that. It's just super easy to get on and off it. And it's very nimble, so it goes wherever you want it to go.
So why did you choose EV? Like, had you been interested in other forms of electric vehicles before this yellow contraption?
That's a great question. And the answer to that is no. It just became obvious that so when Brad basically tried to create his own rendition of the golf board, that was electric. So this was electric, but he intuitively knew that on the golf course, as I do, I like electric golf carts way better than gas-powered ones because the experience is much more pleasurable. You don't have the stink and you don't have the noise, right? So we decided to go down that path, and neither one of us really knew what we were doing on that side. But the more I researched, the more I realized this was a niche that wasn't being filled.
Now, a lot of new e-mobility devices that we see being designed seem to be focused on metro areas, like urban design. And what I thought was really cool about LyteHorse is it seems to me like you guys came at it from, being up in Canada. Like it looks like it's rugged and it can do all sorts of cool back roads, sports kind of stuff. But then what really caught me is that it can do a lot of urban stuff. Like the fact that you guys can go up and down stairs in this thing. Did, coming from Canada kind of influence your design?
That's an interesting question. I would have to say that where we live didn't necessarily influence the design. I think it was more of what are the potential applications for this. And the more we got into it, the more we realized that it has such a wide variety of uses with the same form factor to go from police to military to warehouse use is really paint and accessories. That's the cool part about our design, is it's so uniquely built that it applies to those market verticals so easily that it's like it was made just for them. And that's one of the really cool parts about the LyteHorse. So just to quickly extrapolate, so for example, on the military version, we've designed a V-shaped skid plate underneath that will be IED resistant. And that's one of the huge pain points of the military is soldiers, when they're traveling down these roads in parts of the world unknown, and they hit an IED, for example, in a Humvee, the soldier has nowhere to escape. So they have to absorb the concussion. They have to absorb the blast. And that's why they get hurt or killed so badly. But with the LyteHorse, the way we've designed this V-shaped skid plate, it's going to diffuse the strength of the bomb, and it will have the effect of ejecting the soldier as opposed to containing him in a steel cage where he can't escape. So he may still get hurt, but my guess is he's going to be alive. Policing, for example, the deck height of the Lighthorse is 17 inches off the ground. So that takes a 6-foot police officer and makes him just shy of 8 feet. Well, now you're approaching sitting on a percheron, right? And you got way less maintenance, cost, and you don't have to carry a shovel behind the Lighthorse where you do a real horse, right? And their vantage point is huge. They got very quick to deploy a Lighthorse as opposed to a real horse, and no training for the rider. You just step on and go.
So before we get into talking about all of the different applications, let's just go through the specs of the Lighthorse.
Yeah, so let's see, weight-wise, what's it come in at? What's it weigh in at?
So it's going to be right around 600 to 650. It depends on how it's configured with the battery packs.
What's the range going to be like? I guess it depends on what battery pack you get.
We made a strategic decision before Christmas to build our own battery packs because, as you guys know, the battery world out there for electric vehicles is a bit disparate. Over here, you got electric bicycles. Over here, you got electric cars. And there's not a lot in the middle. So were we to go to a battery house and say, hey, can you design and build this battery for us? Number one, the cost would be higher significantly upfront to engineer it and ongoing to buy them. And then we've got the supply chain issue of, well, they have 200 other customers besides Lighthorse, right? So we decided to build our own, and then it would be built exactly to our specs. So our battery packs, we're calling them Light Packs, right? LYTE. So the Light Pack is a 2.5 kilowatt hour pack that will give us between 20 and 25 miles of range per pack. And the machine itself, in the form factor that you see on the website, contains up to 4. So you can have 1 to 4. So you're going to get somewhere in the 80 to 90 mile range. To address the concerns about more range potentially, you guys know what a Pelican box is, those big heavy black boxes you carry camera gear and that. So we will be mounting one of those on the rear of the machine, and that will hold 4 to 6 more packs, all hardwired in. And then we have a trailer accessory that we built with a sliding tray on the frame of it that's all sealed, and that will hold 8 battery packs. You could literally be at 500 miles. And
wow.
In bush talk, that's 2 to 3 weeks of being gone.
Wow. I mean, that would work out perfectly for like a game warden, for instance, that just had to go into the wilds and be gone for a while. Like, wow.
I wonder if you can add solar to that sort of system.
That's a great question, and I hear that a lot. The challenge with solar is it's so slow, and for the size of the panel that we would need to actually create usable, viable additional power, it wouldn't be really conducive. I've looked at a trailer application with a couple of folding panels on it, but the end result is it's nominal in terms of the increased range that you would get from that.
Jesse's going to push that, I'm sure, though, at some point.
I'm sure you can, futz around with that, just right. Electrons or whatever. So let's talk about max speed.
Speed, yes. One of my favorite subjects on that one. So the Lighthorse is incredibly stable, and that's due to the offset wheel design that we've created in it. So the front wheels are 45 inches, the rear wheels are 35 inches outside to outside. And so you've got this offset design, and they sort of behave like outriggers on a canoe. So if you envision, turning a corner, it's really difficult to tip it over. I mean, somebody's probably going to find a way to do that. I have no doubt. But it's very challenging to tip it over, and it's almost impossible to push it over with one guy, because you kind of have to push it sort of rear to the side. And when wheels are parallel in line with each other, it will tip, right? If it's on a side hill, it will fall over if the angle's too extreme. With the Lighthorse, not the case. Very, very difficult to tip it over. So that was the first thing. It had to be safe. So once we knew it was super safe and stable, then we could go crazy on the speed, right? So I have personally had our Lighthorse demo prototype up to 55 miles an hour. And I'm like, wow, I could still go faster. But you know what? I'm standing on this thing, so maybe I'm gonna just cut it back and not push the envelope. So we've set the max speed at 40 miles an hour, which is 77 kilometers an hour for those of you in Canada.
And so you said that there's a trailer attachment. How much can it tow?
Well, if you go to the website, you'll see a video in our gallery that shows it pulling an 18,000 pound motorhome and dragging it down the road and accelerating as it goes. So that was from a dead pull. You'll see in the video there was no, let's get a tug going with some slack in the strap. No, it was absolutely dead flat, dead pull, and the machine will pull a lot. Now that's not recommended daily usage, obviously, but it'll handle 1,000, 1,500 pounds like it's not even there.
Wow. So, I mean, talking about using it in a manufacturing setting, like in a factory or a Amazon warehouse, like that's perfect for moving around stuff.
Yeah, indeed. It's brilliant that way. It's got massive torque because that's what electric motors do. And in our design, and you were maybe going to ask me this, but we have 4 independent electric motors on each machine, one in each hub. So there is no drivetrain, there's no drive line, there is only the motors. So the cool thing about that is there's 12,000 watts of power and peaks much higher than that. So crazy torque. But the cool thing is if you're in the bush and you happen to, if you're on a quad, let's say, and you're in the woods, 5 miles from anywhere, and you have a driveline component fail or a gear fail in the transfer case, you're walking out. Right? On the LyteHorse, you could lose up to 3 motors for whatever reason and still get home.
Wow. Because, I mean, just to put this in perspective for viewers who are watching and they can't picture what 12,000 watts is, a lot of our e-bikes that we ride on are like 500 to 750 watts, and that's a lot of power.
Those are the high-end,
right, those are high-end bikes.
E-bikes. So this is like the ultimate, not really electric scooter because it's stable, like you said. So it's not like a toy where you're,
right,
on your Razor scooter. This is you're able to stand on it like a platform. There's not too many things that are like this in the world that you can drive. You're either sitting, or you're standing on a 2-wheeled thing, or you're on a bike.
Right. Yeah, I mean, all I can think of would be like a Segway, but those, have to have a lot of stabilization and there's a lot of training that goes into it. Whereas I can imagine just stepping onto this and knowing how to use it.
Yeah, the Segway, and I'm glad you brought that up. You probably know that they're out of manufacturing. They've stopped manufacturing those back June of last year because of the litigation. The challenge with them is, I love the brilliance behind the design because it is really super cool. But the applications are very limited. If you're using it in an airport on marble floors, it's great. But the minute you put it in the real world where there's potholes and curbs and things like that, that's where it gets into trouble real fast. But the LyteHorse eats that stuff up. It is not, use the word scooter because I used the word scooter early on in the conversation. But the LyteHorse, one of the things that everybody says that's seen it on the website or in video and then sees it in real life, they go, oh my gosh, this thing is way bigger than I thought. So you can't get the scale from the pictures.
And I mean, I want to go to some of the use cases here. So let's talk about for policing. I feel like there really isn't anything like this because if you tried to use a Segway as a police officer, like you said, that you'd have to be policing a world that's perfectly flat and it's not. And so if you wanted to go help someone quickly or chase after someone and there's a curb in your way or a pothole, like you said, then that doesn't work.
Right. Or someone throws down their jacket to try and escape you, you're going to be in trouble. Whereas on this thing, the jacket's not going to be.
And what I like about this is it puts the police officer back in the real world instead of being in a box, of a car or someplace. Not only can they get around in crowds and so forth, but they're very personable, I would think, because they're right there.
Yeah, with the community policing aspect becoming more and more important these days to connect with your community, the LyteHorse, very correctly, is a dream for that environment because, when you're in a steel shell surrounded by glass, that you can't connect with your community. Motorcycle officers do not want to get off their bikes. It's way too much work to do that. Time you pull over, kick the kickstand, point the handlebars, swing your leg over with your 40-pound belt on. It's just too much work. And bicycles, the same thing. You can't connect because you're moving too fast, and they again don't want to stop. But on the LyteHorse, you can literally crawl 1 mile an hour and talk to somebody as they're walking very easily. And the cool thing about the LyteHorse is because it is such a unique looking machine, they flock to it. And it's like, wow, what is that? What a great conversation starter that is, right? Just the intrigue of what the machine actually looks like draws a crowd. So it's going to be awesome. And we can't wait to get it into testing to prove that out.
When we go to military applications, it seems like this makes a soldier into like a super soldier. The fact that they can go really fast, they can carry loads, they could probably carry a fallen comrade out of a building or something. And the fact that they can get this thing in and around very tight spaces, like in urban environments, that just seems like the first time I've ever seen anything kind of offered in this space.
Yeah. And funny story. I don't know if you've ever seen the television show SEAL Team. It's a really good, very, very well done, well written. And about a month ago, I was watching an episode, and there was this terrorist insurgent encampment in this valley between these mountains. And the SEAL team went in. There's 8 of them, and they were all on quads, right? And showed them trucking up this mountain trail, and then having to stop and put camouflage over and then hike in, hoof it for about a kilometer because of the noise, right? So now they get into that scenario, and who knows what's going to happen if you get into a hot zone and there's a gunfight and they have to escape quickly. Well, they got to run all the way back to their quads, 1K, carrying these 50-pound packs. And, all the adrenaline that goes with it with the LyteHorse, none of that is an issue. You could get to within 50 yards and they would never know you're there.
That's really interesting. And that would also be true like in a game warden case, right?
Totally.
Yeah, because normally you're going to, take your 4x4 or whatever, but then you're going to have to stop, walk the rest of the way because you don't want to let them know that you're there. But here, right, they're quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, so game wardens in the state of Maine patrol, they do the grow ops as well because there's so much bush there. There's so much opportunity, for people to do that off in the woods and never get caught. Well, they get tips sometimes. And so, if it's 3 or 4 miles in, they actually have to hike it in, carry their rifle over their backpack, walk in. Now, that's not only an energy strain, but it's also a time strain because how long does it take to walk 3 miles both directions, right? So you're taking 2 hours out of somebody's day just walking. Well, that's not efficient or effective. And so the LyteHorse, again, I had an experience with Brad. We were out testing it, and he went down this little trail, and I kept looking for him to come out the other side, and somehow he circled way around behind me. And I didn't hear him until he was literally about 10 feet behind me. He came around, snuck up on me. I'm like, what? Where did you come from? Right? That's how quiet it is. If you're on grass or dirt, you hear nothing. Nothing. Gravel, you're going to hear the tires against, the gravel. But if the terrain is sand, dirt, or grass, weeds, you hear nothing.
Here we're going to show a video showing that exact point where the LyteHorse is going to go right in front of the camera. And let's see what you can hear. So I heard birds.
The audio was on, by the way.
The audio was on. You heard the birds. But yeah, and I think one big reason for this is your design, right? By having hub motors without having a normal, like in a car, you have a geared powertrain with gears that are whirring. I imagine that must keep the sound really, really low.
That's a big part of it. The motors are just incredibly quiet. And, the only sound that you're going to hear is the tires against the surface. That is really it.
Yeah, this is really, really exciting. I can see a lot of people checking out your website after this video to see what this is all about. It's so great to see the people behind the companies. I think a lot of times when we see these websites, we are just like, is this real? Who are the people doing this? It's so refreshing to get to meet you, the founder of the company, and get to hear how you started it, where you're going with it. We're just so excited to hopefully even get ourselves on one this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure that happens.
That's awesome. Thank you again so much, Allen, for being with us today. just great to talk to founders of e-mobility companies that are really doing well.
Well, and thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Wow, this is an exciting machine.
There's so many different applications that I think no one has been thinking about because, it fills so many boxes that have never been filled before.
Yeah.
You can watch the full interview with Allen over on the Disruptive Investing channel. We asked him about investment opportunities for LyteHorse, and you can learn more in that interview.
And consider joining our Now You Know Investor Club by supporting us at the $10 level on Patreon. We have over 1,400 members, and they have actually gotten to see this content first.
We have a whole discussion board on Slack with dozens of different channels. In fact, we just started a LyteHorse channel where you can bet our members are going to hear about investment opportunities first.
Thank you to Robin and Allen for making this interview possible. And lastly, Allen invited us to take the LyteHorse for a spin. So we're hoping to swing by in our Rivian R1T this summer because I would love to see what that LyteHorse looks like in the back of the Rivian. Oh, that's what it looks like.
Thank you so much for watching. Now you know.